For decades, Canada and the US have stood shoulder to shoulder as military allies. But that alliance is now on shaky ground. With Trump's hardline policies triggering trade disputes, nationalist backlash, and even whispers of annexation, Canada is no longer willing to play by Washington's rules. Instead, Ottawa is redrawing the lines of its defense strategy, turning to Europe and Asia for security partnerships that could reshape North American power dynamics. Deals with France for next-gen nuclear submarines and Australia for advanced Arctic surveillance tech signal a clear shift. Canada is breaking free from its military dependence on the US. But what does this mean for the future of North American security? Is Canada setting itself up for greater strength, or stepping into uncharted waters with unpredictable risks? Let's unpack the key developments and what they mean for the road ahead.
Since being sworn in last Friday, Mark Carney's decision to visit Paris instead of Washington, as is usual for Canadian leaders.
Carney announcing a $6 billion partnership with Australia, which is a world leader in developing over-the-horizon radar.
Canada's move away from the US, the end of a long-standing alliance. Canada and the US have had some tension lately. President Trump put a 25% tariff on Canadian imports, saying it was because of immigration and fentanyl trafficking. A lot of people thought this was just politics. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau hit back with his own tariffs, upping the ante. Then things took an even stranger turn. Trump casually floated the idea of making Canada the 51st state. What started as a throwaway comment quickly became a serious diplomatic problem. Trudeau pointed out that America's growing appetite for Canada's natural resources was driving this power move. It felt like a way to strong-arm Canada, but instead, it led to a wave of nationalist resistance. The Elbows Up movement became a rallying cry for Canadians demanding greater economic and military independence from the US. As tensions escalated, Trudeau stepped down, making way for Mark Carney as the new Prime Minister. Carney wasted no time calling for early elections and pledging to safeguard Canada's sovereignty. Foreign Minister Melanie Joly said that other countries relying on the US for security should take note of what was happening in Canada. Carney's message was clear. Canada was ready to chart its own course, even if that meant moving away from Washington's orbit. But trade disputes were just the start. Canada's defense strategy was about to make a big shift toward Europe. France-Canada Submarine Pact, boosting naval power and sovereignty. Canada is looking to France to revamp its submarine fleet. The French nuclear-powered attack submarine FS Tourville recently stopped in Halifax, Nova Scotia, for cold water trials, just 300 miles from the U.S. border. This Barracuda-class sub has top-tier stealth, long-range endurance, and cutting-edge intelligence gathering, perfect for Arctic missions. To upgrade its navy, Canada's Royal Navy is putting in a huge 60 billion Canadian dollars, about 42 billion US dollars, investment to replace its old fleet. The deal could bring in 6 to 12 new subs, with the first expected to be operational by 2035. France's naval group, the brains behind the FS Tourville, is in the lead for the contract, with the full support of the French government behind them. This isn't just about upgrading defense. It's a smart move to deal with rising tensions in the Arctic. With the ice melting and opening up new shipping lanes, the risk of territorial disputes with Russia and China is only increasing. By teaming up with France, Canada is beefing up its Arctic naval presence, without any of the usual American conditions. This deal is part of a bigger shift toward European defense partnerships, reinforcing Canada's drive for military independence from the US. But securing its waters is just one piece of the puzzle. Canada's Arctic airspace is also getting a high-tech overhaul. Before we go any further, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It'll help us reach more viewers who are passionate about global affairs. Now let's talk about what's next for this geopolitical shift. Deal alert: Australian radar for Canada's Arctic defense. Canada's drive for defense independence is making waves with its latest deal with Australia. Prime Minister Mark Carney recently unveiled a 6 billion Canadian dollars agreement to acquire a state-of-the-art over-the-horizon radar system from Australia's Jindalee Operational Radar Network, JORN. This game-changing technology will massively boost Canada's ability to keep a close eye on its remote Arctic territories. an increasingly contested region in global geopolitics. Jorn leverages ionospheric refraction to bounce radio waves beyond the horizon, allowing real-time tracking of aircraft and vessels up to 3,000 kilometers away. This tech is a game-changer for Arctic security. It overcomes the challenges of extreme weather and vast isolated terrain that have long limited traditional radar systems. For a long time, Canada's air defense has been closely tied to the U.S. through NORAD. But with Trump's unpredictable foreign policy and rising uncertainty, Canada is moving towards greater strategic independence. Prime Minister Carney made it clear that Canada needs to be able to defend its own borders without depending on U.S. infrastructure. But this shift isn't just about hardware. They're also reevaluating their fighter jet strategy. Rethinking the F-35 deal, Canada's shift toward defense autonomy. Canada is taking a hard look at its $19 billion contract with Lockheed Martin for 88 F-35 fighter jets, a deal signed back in June 2023. Originally intended to be the backbone of Canada's air defense and a vital piece of NATO's integrated network, the agreement is now under scrutiny. Trump's aggressive trade moves and unpredictable diplomacy have raised serious concerns about long-term reliability. Defense Minister Bill Blair confirmed that Canada is actively weighing its options, with the Eurofighter Typhoon and France's Dassault Rafale emerging as strong contenders. Both jets offer comparable performance to the F-35, but without the political strings attached to American defense pacts. Portugal's recent move to cancel its F-35 order because of concerns about Trump's foreign policy has only added to Canada's doubts. Portugal's defense minister, Nuno Melo, said that Trump's isolationist approach could make it harder to maintain and operate the F-35, which raises serious questions about how reliable it will be in the long term. If Canada goes through with ending the F-35 deal, it would be a big change in how we work with the U.S. on defense. But Canadian officials have made it clear that national security and being independent are more important than keeping up with our old military relationships with Washington. This shift towards working with Europe and Asia is more than just a change in defense strategy. It's part of a bigger geopolitical realignment. Forging new alliances, Canada's strategic pivot to Europe and Asia. Canada's deepening defense ties with Europe and Asia mark a clear shift away from its long-standing military dependence on the U.S. Besides the French submarine deal and the Australian radar upgrade, Canada is teaming up with Japan and South Korea on new security deals. In 2024, Canada and Japan signed a defense pact to boost naval cooperation, conduct joint military drills, and enhance intelligence sharing. This move shows that Canada is focusing more on the Indo-Pacific as tensions with China over maritime borders and resource claims continue to rise. Canada's interest in the Eurofighter Typhoon and Dassault Rafale over the F-35 shows this strategic shift. Both jets offer top-tier capabilities and operational freedom, without the strings attached to U.S. defense agreements. As Foreign Minister Melanie Joly said, Canada wants a multipolar defense strategy, so it's not too dependent on any one partner. With Washington's unpredictability under Trump, Canada is forging its own path and aligning itself with a more diversified global security network. Verdict: is Canada ready to defend itself without U.S. support? Canada's move away from U.S.-built defense systems shows a big change in its strategic identity. Canceling the F-35 deal, going with French submarines, and investing in Australian radar tech all point to a push for greater military autonomy. But breaking away from American defense ties isn't without its challenges. If it loosens its grip on U.S.-linked systems, it could mess with NORAD operations and disrupt long-standing military coordination. And on the economic side, Canada's defense industry, which relies a lot on American supply chains, might feel the effects if cross-border collaboration starts to fade. What's your take? Can Canada stand on its own without leaning on the U.S.? Should it double down on its partnerships with Europe and Asia? Or is this a high-stakes gamble? Let us know what you think in the comments. We'd love to hear your take on this shift in global power dynamics. And be sure to like and subscribe to Globe Lines for more in-depth looks at shifts in global power. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.